Good afternoon, all my friends today who are here on this Zoom. Welcome on behalf of Global Unitalks Worldwide Family. It is our pleasure to see all of you here today as a second part of the debate competition, which was held on 28th November this month. So now let me invite Mr. Hilary, who is our President of Global Unitalks Uganda, to start the event. Give a big round of applause to Mr. Hilary Turnawe. The floor is yours, Mr. Hilary.
Thank you so much, Professor Wallace. For those who are joining us for the first time, you're most welcome to Unitalks family. Feel at home. We are a worldwide family. We are in 177 countries across the world, so you're definitely in the right place. For those joining us for the first time, you are most welcome to Unitalks family. My name is Hilary Turnawe, and I'm the president of Global Unitalks Uganda. However, today I'm in a different capacity as the tournament director of this annual healthy debates that we have been organizing as Unitalks Uganda, and also an extension of the international debate competition that we had last weekend. So welcome everyone and feel at home. Thank you so much for hosting us today at Global Unitalks. We are very humbled to be here. Today, we will have the grand finale of the healthy debates. We had about 42 teams registering for this competition, and we have done right from round 1, round 2, round 3, and today we break to the grand finale of this competition. We are really excited to be here for this grand finale. After all these rounds and competitions and people engaging on different aspects, today is the climax of the event, and we are really happy to have reached this great milestone. After the 42 teams registered, we had a number of participants coming on board. And after that, we had two categories. We had the debate category and we had the speech category. We concluded the grand finale of the speech category today. So we just didn't want to have like about 5 or 10 hours for the same event. So we made the speech compile on the grand finale, and today we'll have the debate grand final as well. So that has been where we started from on this competition, and today this is where we are. At this opportunity, I would like to recognize Professor Diana. Thank you for coming through. She has always been our mentor at Unitalks Uganda. Thank you so much, Professor Diana, for coming through. And thank you everyone that is here, all the participants, even those that don't make it the grand finale. Thank you for coming through up to date. I would like to congratulate the teams that made it to the grand final. And I would like at this moment to share the draw for the grand final. We are using the British parliamentary format, so it's always around where we have 4 teams actually engaging on the same motion. And we have restricted all our motions for discussion about health, awareness, prevention, and all ideas relating to the health, because we dubbed this the Healthy Event 2021. So people have been discussing ideas, topics, or debate motions about healthy issues, for example, unconditional strikes for medical workers, for example, whether things like genetic research ought to have like restrictions or not. People have been giving speeches on topics like health is wealth, and all the different things that the youth themselves can ideally take part in a bid to ensure better health and improved health amidst the new diseases which are coming in. We have epidemics like HIV/AIDS. We have had the COVID-19 pandemic actually still attacking us. We still have other people who still die of malnutritional diseases, not because they do not know, but it is because sometimes they are not aware of what to do. So sometimes we have simple accidents, not simple. We have accidents that happen, but we don't know the simple remedy or first aid to these things, and sometimes it escalates to the worst. So the purpose of this event has been to create to provide a platform for people to engage, as well as share their ideas, learn from each other, as well as meet new people, and most importantly, to make them feel what Unitalks is and what we do to promote and give them the platform where they can speak and express their ideas. I'll be showing the draw in a minute. This will be our program lineup for tonight. We'll have the debate grand finale, and this is going to begin in the next few minutes. We'll have the inauguration of the country team elect. These have been these are the newly elected leaders of Global Unitalks Uganda. And thirdly, we'll have the keynote speech. This will be from our founder of Global Unitalks. And then we'll have the award ceremony for the different categories of individuals that have participated in this event. We are proud of everyone that is here. At this moment, I would like to introduce to you the teams that are breaking to the grand finale. And we have Double A Battery, we have Lillian Marvin, we have Drain or Be Drained, and we have Demboy Z. So these are the 4 teams that have made it to the grand finale of the Fast Healthy Debates 2021. In opening government, we'll have Double A Battery. In opening opposition, we'll have Lily and Marvin. In closing government, we'll have Drain or Be Drained, and closing opposition, we'll have Demboy Z. Congratulations, everyone, for breaking to the grand finale, and we'll be releasing the motion shortly after this. Thank you. All right, and here's the motion for the grand finale. We have an info slide for this motion. It says, in 1998, multiple pharmaceutical companies took the South African government to court for sourcing cheaper genetic antiretroviral drugs to combat HIV/AIDS pandemic in their country from other nations. They claimed it was in violation of World Trade treaties and stilted all supply of ARVs to South Africa during the trial. This led to the death of many infected South Africans. In 2001, the companies caved into international pressure and withdrew their case. During such occurrences, this House would hold the pharmaceutical companies are capable for the death of those South Africans. This is the round. We have 15 minutes for prep time, and the round will be beginning 15 minutes from now. Enjoy the round and welcome everyone. Thank you. I would also like to take this opportunity to introduce for you the judges grand finale of the healthy debates. The chair for this round will be Mr. Tony Ayafa, all the way from Nigeria. He's a renowned debater and public speaker. He has been to the finals of Pan-African University Debate Championship. He has been to the finals of London Ivy. He has been to the finals of other competitions in Australia, Asia, as well as Africa and other parts of the world. He's a renowned debater, judge, and public speaker. We welcome you, Tony Ayafa. He will be the chair of this grand final. Joining him on the panel, we will have Odubayo Esther Modope, Mrs. She is a renowned debater and public speaker from Nigeria. She'll also be joining us on the panel. Let us welcome Esther. You're most welcome. Our third on the panel will be having Olga Shrevostova. She is from Greece. She is a renowned debater and public speaker. She'll also be joining us for the grand finale today. She has a vast experience in debate. She has been to the semifinals of Trinity Ivy. She has been to the semifinals of Uhuru Worlds, and we are proud to have you today. Thank you so much. You're most welcome, Olga Shrevosteva, all the way from Greece. I also like to welcome Philia Soli. She'll be joining us as the other member of the panel today. She's a renowned debater and public speaker as well. She has a good experience, and she has judged and debated at different competitions, both local, national, and international. We welcome you today. We also welcome the other member of the panel today joining us for this grand finale, and that is Alinaitwe Jotham, all the way from Uganda. Congratulations on making it to the panel of the grand finale. He's a renowned debater and public speaker. He has got a vast experience. He has had a long-term experience with judging debates from the National Schools Debate Championship to the Stanbic Bar competitions, as well as regional and other international competitions. You are most welcome. So we'll have 5 judges for this grand finale, and we are proud to have you, our dear judges. Just for purposes of technical check, I just hope all judges and all teams that made to the grand final are panelists already. So make sure you are able to open your video, you're able to speak and unmute your microphone. If you can't, just let me know and we rectify that. Otherwise, the debate begins in the next few minutes. Thank you. Tony Alpha, the chair of this round, I request you to take over in this debate. Thank you.
So, hello everyone. The chair for the round, Ayafa Tonye. So, I will give you a short summary on British parliamentary style for those of us that haven't seen the style before and explain what's going on. The teams will be here in about 5 minutes. Just a short summary so we understand. So, British parliamentary style works with just 4 teams of 2 speakers each, 2 opening teams, the opening government and the opening opposition, then 2 closing teams, the closing government and the closing opposition. So the teams are given the motion 15 minutes, 15 minutes to the round, as you just saw, about 10 minutes has passed. And then when they are given the motion, they are sent to prepare the motion within that period of time and produce arguments for or against the motion. So the opening government is fairly simple. They just propose arguments for and respond to arguments against the motion. Open opposition is also fairly simple with that regards. They get motions, they propose against the motion or they argue against the motion, and they largely respond to arguments made for the motion. But from closing government downwards, it gets fairly tricky because the expectation of teams there, and that's what makes British parliamentary style unique, is that they're meant to create some form of responses or some degree of argumentation that is significantly different from what you would otherwise hear from the opening, while still proposing arguments for the motion from closing government side. The same thing happens from closing opposition side, where they are meant to respond to arguments for the motion and propose arguments against the motion. But at that point, they are also meant to do it in a way that is uniquely different from their opening opposition within that regard. So I think that particularly gives a bit of nuance to what we'll be seeing in today's debate with regards to how the teams will perform. So do not be surprised when you hear a separate team making arguments that are similar to what comes from opening, but in some ways uniquely different. So I think just to prepare our minds for that. But moving on beyond that, you have 7 minutes and 15 seconds to give their arguments. So the first minute they have nobody's allowed to interrupt them or ask them anything, which is when there is a no PI period. But from their first minute to their 6 minutes, which is about a period of 5 minutes, they can take questions by their other opponents during the round to explain and clarify issues or respond to issues that might be tenuous during the round. The people or the speakers that are going to ask questions that are not speaking at that time would have 15 seconds to ask questions or particularly pose their threats in that debate, right? Then the speakers can respond. It's usually preferable if the speakers take about 1 or possibly 2 of these so that they have significant time to respond, at the same time also make their own arguments. So do not also at the same time be surprised where you hear other speakers trying to interject or give what we call points of information, the 15-second questions during that period of time. But moving on beyond that, we think that towards the last minutes, which is the 6 minutes to about the 7 minute 15-second mark, which is about 1 minute 15 seconds, it gives some degree of clarity as to what's going on in the round, which means that at that point, teams are trying to summarize their arguments and make them significantly simpler and a whole lot more straightforward so people can understand the arguments, but at the same time also engage them at a fair and largely clear basis, right? So as I've said before, you have 4 teams: the opening government, the opening opposition, the closing government, the closing opposition. And then they will have 15 minutes of prep time, which has already started counting, to engage the debate and prepare with their teammates. They have 7 minutes, 15 seconds each to give speeches about the debate. And then after that, they need to hand over, or inevitably judges are no longer allowed to write or take anything they say seriously. So even if they choose to speak beyond that time, the arguments are irrelevant. And then they also have points of information which involve 15-second questions asked by opposing teams towards them during the duration of that 7 minutes, 15 seconds. We hope that's clear, and we really hope that you guys enjoyed today's debate. So we think that the teams have about a minute left, so we'll wait quietly and see as they come back. And wait as they come back. Thank you.
All right, and this marks the end of prep time. So at this time, we'd like to invite the teams that have been for the prep time to be back here. We request all debaters who are going to speak in this grand finale to like to open their videos. That would be very helpful so that we could keep track of you just in case. So make sure you open your videos and let us know. The chair will be beginning the round in the next 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you for that, Hilary. So without any further ado, I would like to do a quick roll call of the teams to ensure that they are here. Opening government, are you here?
Yes, we are here.
Okay, I think you heard Hilary. To be appreciated if you turned on your video while you're giving your speeches. So is the Prime Minister here? Prime Minister, opening government Prime Minister? Opening government Deputy Prime Minister?
Hi,
Are you
hi, I'm here. I'm here.
How about the Prime Minister?
I'm the Prime Minister.
How about the Deputy Prime Minister? Where's your partner?
I'm here.
That's good to note. Opening position, are both of you here?
We're here.
Okay. Closing government, are both of you here? Closing government?
Yeah, closing government is here.
Both of you?
Yeah, both of us.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Closing position? Closing opposition? Closing opposition, member of opposition, and the opposition whip. Are either of you available? Okay, so this might be a slight cause of delay. Do any of the other teams know what the closing opposition team is? In the meantime, could the speaking teams, opening government, and the rest, could you guys all kindly open your cameras? Open opposition, open government, could you guys kindly open your cameras, please? Okay, thank you. Everybody else. So I just want to confirm, is closing opposition here now? Closing opposition, are they here now?
Closing opposition is here, please. How we want to name ourselves like this? Closing opposition is here.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. So I think in case of any slight network issues, I think only opening teams will keep their cameras on for now. And during the speech, the Prime Minister obviously has to keep their cameras on. There will be a timer. So guys will not be listening to anything after 7 minutes, 15 seconds. I hope you can all stick to that. Without any further ado, I would like to call upon the Prime Minister to open the case for the opening government here.
It's Prime Minister they call this. Let me type it here.
Opening government, you kind of have to turn on your cameras when you're speaking, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we will do so.
What show? So it's going to be in view on why they should not audit a particular.
Opening government, feel free to start. Thank you.
I'll start my speech. Hi everyone, I'm Kyla. My pronouns are she and her. But I really prefer if you just refer to me as the Prime Minister. I will take POI. Thank you for respecting that. So, without further ado, I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Let me begin by saying that I'm quite thankful that in today's time, efforts towards combating HIV and AIDS are all over the world, most especially in Africa, are gaining more and more attention. But for a moment, imagine in 1998, with all the taboo, with all the prejudice, all the discrimination against AIDS and HIV patients, treatment was hard to come by, yet the medical companies who were so threatened by the cheap supply of South Africa chose violence and decided to stifle their supplies, killing South Africans. We tell you that we reject a world where companies impede important actions from happening for the sake of greed, profit, some sort of trade relations that's written on paper at the cost of human lives. We tell you that the world of the opposition is a world where companies impede life-saving processes for the sake of missed profit while still being able to go away unscathed. We tell you that this world is unacceptable. We believe a couple of things in this house. We think that being culpable means more than just physically being there, physically being there and being the one who inflict the murders firsthand with your own hands, right? We believe that being culpable involves indirect actions that exponentially harms the people whose lives were lost by this, right? We also believe that actions, when done with complete awareness must be met with utmost accountability, and the deliverers of this actions must be held liable to face their consequences. We need to note these companies stifled voluntarily and deliberately the supply of these medicines in South Africa for economic reasons, such as trade. But at what cost, right? At what cost, right? That they can never repay. We think that the team that wins this debate should be able to prove to us why precisely justice is reached in their hands, right? In the world that they're going to build, right? Why precisely at the end of the day, it is a better world not just for South Africa but for HIV and AIDS patients all over the world. We believe that the actions of the African government to source out cheaper ARV drugs were justified and completely acceptable because their cheaper drugs were saving lives and makes HIV treatment more accessible in general. Today we argue that these companies must be held culpable because they were 100% aware of the actions that they were pursuing when they took this matter to court. We tell you that in 1998, AIDS and HIV in Africa was already known to be rampant in news outlets, radio stations, and even old television. Right? We tell you that the effects on human lives of AIDS and HIV were already known, right, by the majority and a lot of people, which means that the companies who asked to stifle the supply of the medication of South Africa did not care at all about how it would affect the patients who were struggling, battling, and dying from the said disease, right? We tell you that in a country where supply from the international community has always been hard, it is disgusting to see that actions and efforts were deliberately taken to contribute to the said struggle, right? Which again led to debts, to a lot of debts, right? Opposition may say that it was only South Africa's supply at the end of the day that was stifled, which means that South Africans during that time could very well get medication from other manufacturers like the West, right? Or other manufacturers at all outside South Africa. Well, we tell you that sure, it is an option that sounds possible in theory. It was not one that was possible in practice during that time. For the simple reason that because international manufacturers cost more, it is automatically an option that many South Africans would not choose, right? Instead of putting, because there's this mindset na instead of putting food on tables, you're asking them to buy medication that's more expensive just because of your own greed and business profit, right? We tell you that even in today's world, not if in today's world African countries already have a natural difficulty in sourcing goods from the international community, how much more back then? For instance, there were African countries who paid earlier and higher costs to get COVID vaccines, but still haven't received it because other countries, particularly in the West, are getting them first. We tell you that this, coupled with the fact that it is saving lives, the actions of the African government were very much justified, and the medical companies should not have taken them to court and asked them to stifle their supply. We tell you that the actions of the companies now are even more justified, even if it didn't cost the debts per se, because they're just making things harder for African countries. We tell you that at the end of the day, accountability is a big thing, and that these medical companies must be held accountable for their actions. We tell you that the human lives lost in this scenario are not something that we can take lightly, right? We tell you that holding these medical companies culpable actually bring about real justice for the African lives lost, because at the end because at the end of because at the end of the day the lives of the Africans who struggled and suffered from this situation are a product of greed and profit that is highly rampant in the capitalist world.
I'd like to thank Prime Minister for that speech, and without further ado, call upon the leader of opposition to further than open the case for the opening position. Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Here you are.
Hi everyone, my name is Ariel, no preferred gender pronouns. If you would like to POI me, please just do it through unmuting yourself. I'm going to take one, preferably from closing. I'm gonna start speaking in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, this debate is not about whether or not we should defend people who died. We think that both sides of the House literally do not stand by people dying. Both sides of the House do not think that this is a good thing. And we think that the debate is whether or not these pharmaceutical companies deserve to be held responsible for what took place in South Africa during this point in time. And we actually think that they are not responsible for what took place, right? We think that what they did was essentially necessary in order to call out the actions of the South African state. And we think that their intentions were not malicious. And we think that these companies were doing their best in order to protect their citizens and not necessarily do something ill to them because they were greedy, etc., and all of the other assertions brought to us by opening government. And with this, our clash is literally so simple. We think, coming from opening opposition, that like you only can hold someone culpable for two things. We think that number one, you cannot hold them culpable if they essentially had no intent in order to cause harm onto such people. We think that if their intent was something positive, then we don't think that we are able to hold them culpable essentially. Second reason is that we think that their action of pulling out like this, like the medicine that they had, essentially was something that they needed to do. We think that this is the primary way for them to call out what the South African state did to the people. And we think that they were not the reason these South Africans essentially died, but rather it was because state response was so inadequate that the drugs that the South African state were essentially able to source out from other countries were not enough to tackle the problem. And these types of drugs were essentially not enough to save citizens from the AIDS pandemic. And with that, we have a few rebuttals for you today that don't necessarily quite fit into my arguments. The first rebuttal is that the previous speaker kept talking about how these companies were essentially threatened by these cheap products, and that's why they pulled it out of threat of not making enough money. We think that number one, that's not essentially true because they had a sense of urgency in developing these types of drugs. We think that these people essentially had families who were South Africans. We think that these people within South African pharmaceutical companies knew the gravity of the situation, and we don't think that anyone is morally reprehensible enough to take advantage of that situation, especially because they empathize with these people who are affected by the pandemic through such a great extent. We think that if anyone is willing to take advantage of these people, it is other countries who are taking advantage of them, necessarily because they don't empathize with the situation and they have literally no reason to care past what they see. And with that, we don't think that it's necessarily greed or profit that they pulled out these drugs, and we think that they were doing it for a good cause. The second thing that we'd like to point out is their entire case is literally hinged upon the realization that these pharmaceutical companies have malicious intent on the part of what they did. And we think that so long as we bring down that malicious intent, then we take this debate. My last extraneous rebuttal is they said that drugs from other countries were essentially cheap and necessarily effective. But then the question then becomes, if these drugs were so effective, even if they were essentially cheap, then why did South African people essentially die even if they already had access to these cheap generic drugs? We think that the fact that people died, even if they had access to it, is essentially proof that the South African state response was not enough and that they should have gone to pharmaceutical companies in order to get a more adequate medical response. And with that, I have a clear first argument for you today on two levels on how pharmaceutical companies' concerns were valid and how pulling out their drugs was the only way to get attention for South African patients who were suffering under the South African state's mishandling of the pandemic. Now, let's contextualize what we mean by the concerns of these pharmaceutical companies. Why did the pharmaceutical companies essentially do what they did? And let's debunk the entire battle cry coming from opening government that they did it because of greed, that they did it in order to maximize their profits. We think that this is where the idea of an appropriate medical response comes in. We think that pharmaceutical companies are much more knowledgeable about medical responses and how drugs work compared to the state for the following reasons. We think that number one, since their business are health specialized and like health dependent, they have more medical studies, they have more medical research, they have qualified medical individuals in the field in order to judge an adequate like medical response. And on the converse, literally the South African state does not have this type of specialization when it comes to medicine, and they don't have enough type of like qualified individuals in order to judge that type of response, right? But also second reason is that the fact that these were like African pharmaceutical companies, we think that if they were interested in creating that drug that fast and not necessarily like wanting it like to become cheap and having it like accessible enough that it was somewhat expensive, we think that it means that they wanted these drugs to be of quality, right? Because when we think about like cheaper drugs, we also think that the production factors would also become cheaper. This means that there were less clinical trials done. This means that the like ingredients or like the chemicals that they used were essentially cheaper. And we think that because like South African pharmaceutical companies had slightly more expensive drugs, it means that they had the intent to make them more effective, regardless of how expensive it may be. We think that this actually proves that they were interested in helping the AIDS pandemic because they developed these antiretroviral drugs and wanted like the South African state to use it. We think that if they wanted profit, they literally could have maximized any other drug. Like they could have made something that like essentially solved colds or essentially solved a different type of like disease that they wanted to maximize the profits from. But no, they chose to focus on like AIDS. And we think that that essentially proves that they had good intentions and didn't necessarily want to use it for profit because it's not an easy feat to do. And we think that that essentially proves that they're good, that they had good intentions. This is where we now ask, like, what was the intent of the pharmaceutical companies of pulling out? We think that on opening opposition, it's very much simple. We think that number one, they knew that the South African response like was essentially medically inappropriate on the state's part. And we think that number two, because it negatively affected South African citizens, pulling out these drugs was the only way for them to take a stand against it. Now we move on to the question: why was the South African state's response inappropriate, and why should they be held responsible instead of these pharmaceutical companies? We think that number one, trading took such a long time. We think that because the drugs had to be like shipped from elsewhere, instead of purchasing from like state companies already in which you could use them immediately, we think that the state sacrificed days and weeks just to target cheaper drugs. And we think that this is where the trade-off was people dying in that point in time for when they were waiting for these drugs. And this is when we actually think that the state essentially falls in terms of medical response. Because the implication there is that the South African state literally chose people dying over paying slightly more than more expensive like drugs coming from their country. We think that because they didn't want to help people immediately, this is state negligence on their part, and they did not act on a proper sense of urgency. Second reason it was inappropriate. We think that the drugs Africans sourced from other countries were essentially ineffective and not enough to target state response, right? Because when we think about like the pharmaceutical companies pulling out their drugs, we think that they didn't think anyone was going to be affected by it because the South African state already got drugs from other countries. It means to say that they thought there was already enough supply for them to counter it, and that pulling out was merely a statement. But rather, pulling out and having these people die after essentially proves that the state was incompetent in terms of getting proper drugs, because people still died regardless of that present supply in their country. And for all of these reasons, we think that number one, the intent of these companies were essentially good, and number two, we think it was state negligence, and these actors should not be held accountable just because they wanted to help people against the South African government negligence. And for all of these reasons, never been prouder to oppose.
I'd like to thank the LO for that speech. Call upon Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
Hello, can I be heard?
Hello.
Yeah, you are.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I will begin my speech in 3. Oh, and POIs will be taken via chat. So 3, 2, 1. This House would hold pharmaceutical companies culpable for the deaths of those South Africans because of their responsibility in the action, the benefits towards accountability, the gravity of their actions, and because of justice in the name of the victims. But first of all, some rebuttals to the previous speaker. They mentioned that we can hold them culpable if they have intent. But we have to remember that it doesn't matter whether their intent was to harm Africans or not. Their actions were still deliberate and irresponsible. Their motivation was profit, and they did not care at all. Again, just because your intent was not to hurt does not mean your actions don't hurt someone. If I were to hurt someone, even though I didn't intend to, I still hurt them. That was still my action, and I'm still responsible for that. Intent doesn't make someone more or less culpable. What matters is the effect. They stifled the distribution, which led to many people dying. Additionally, they stated that these companies weren't necessarily acting out of greed or profit. They had no malicious intent. But we would like to remind everyone that this is a very unrealistic way to view it. And it's a very idealistic way to view these companies. It's too bold to assume that these medical companies are somehow benevolent and that they put these interests of others at the first and foremost. The medical companies focusing on AIDS doesn't make their cost good. It makes them clever because AIDS is a medication that sold well at that time, especially at that time when there was a great outbreak of AIDS. Additionally, they stated that, if the medicine was so effective, then why did people die? We would like to remind everyone that the medicine had to be taken continuously. So they either didn't understand the info slide or ignored it completely. Because again, even up to today, there is no cure for AIDS. There is no cure for AIDS at the moment. And this type of medicine needs to be taken continuously in order to function well. Additionally, they stated that, they wanted to help people of South Africa for the negligence. And this is delusional at best because they stifled the supply because of trade threats that were clearly stated in the motion. They're trying to turn this motion around in order to win, but we won't let them get away with it. Because again, it was clearly stated in the motion that this was a very negligent action. They acted. They knew what was going on. And now on to my main extension. Now, first of all, there is the problem of responsibility. As stated by the Prime Minister, being culpable for a crime is more than being there to physically enact a crime. It involves the indirect actions that lead to the crime, such as well as the crime itself. Now, these companies were aware of their actions and thus claim responsibilities over their actions. You can't say that they had no idea. They had no idea that this would affect people. They knew very well that many people were reliant on these drugs that were being produced. Even in this day and age, we recognize that responsibility exists in indirect action. For example, if a company has unethical practices such as child labor, and you were to support that company in some way, you would be funding the practices of child labor. Inaction in the face of injustice only supports the oppressor. Inaction in the face of injustice is in itself unjust. No, thank you. This is non-negotiable, and one cannot claim that there is a neutral action. Additionally, the accountability, holding these companies accountable for their actions, would benefit both the victims and the companies, as the victims' families could receive closure, they'd receive support, as these families and their connections would likely still be grieving. A resolution can be made by holding these companies accountable. And this also benefits the companies on their part, because it would become a stepping stone for these companies to improve their image. It would be a stepping stone for them to build more ethical practices, to take responsibility for their own actions, and to build a culture that supports people all around. Additionally, we need to remember why people need the drug in the first place. First of all, poverty is a rampant problem in South Africa, and cheaper drugs save lives. This wasn't just some random, this wasn't just an additional choice they had to choose from. It was necessary, even underlined by the African government, because many South Africans needed. Again, AIDS at the moment has no cure. They're very reliant on the medicine that was there. That was their lifeline. They had to take it continuously in order to sustain themselves. And so the lives of millions of people were dependent on these medications. And the companies are well aware of this. There was no real reason to hinder its production other than profit. They knew specifically that that preventing South Africans from accessing this drug would affect them. Additionally, we need to remember that this is a case of justice, and the lives of many people were taken. Had it not been for these actions, then not so many people would have died. Again, we need to remember that because they had a responsibility in these actions, they prevented people from accessing these drugs. Thus, this led to the deaths of many South Africans. And so we need to remember that in our house, we highlight the responsibility of these companies in regard to these actions. Because again, we are well aware that what they did affected millions of people. And we believe that holding them accountable would hold benefits for both the victims, their families, as well as for the companies themselves, in the sense that they would be able to renew themselves. And additionally, we remind everyone of the gravity of their actions. This wasn't just affecting one person. It wasn't just affecting a few people. These were entire nations that were affected. And finally, we need to remember that with this course of justice, with the responsibility that these people have over their actions, which led to the deaths of millions of people, we should hold them accountable. And with that, and for those reasons and more, I've never been prouder to propose.
I'd like to thank Deputy Prime Minister for that speech. Call upon Deputy Leader of Opposition to close the opening half of today's debate and further the case for the opening position. Here.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, so POY's true voice, most likely between the 4 and 6 minute mark. Pronouns are he and them. And I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Opening governments, DPM, said that the intent doesn't make someone any more or less culpable, but this was a direct contradiction to her PM speech. Her PM's entire premise was to say that the main reason they had to be held culpable. They said that greed is the reason these companies pull their supply out, but the question becomes, what was the pharmaceutical companies aware of? They were aware that drugs were available, but that the state literally took the trade-off of people dying before the medicine could get there. That's why it was a treaty violation. We think that this proves good intent on the company's part, because if they knew the cheap drugs were available already, then they thought people could use said cheap drugs. It was a negligence on the state's part that had the South Africans suffering because even after the companies pull out, the South African state did nothing to get their drugs back on the market. The fact that people were already dying from the state's ineffective drugs, yet they didn't make peace with the companies far more access merely proves that the state's ineffective drugs, yet they didn't make peace with the companies for more accessible merely proves that the state was acting on the economic intent and not on medical intent in order to help their citizens. So what are our burdens? In me and my partner's speech, we have to firstly prove why it is not the pharmaceuticals company's fault, and secondly, to prove who's to blame, which is South Africa. Firstly, if you few rebuttals. Intent makes the people entirely culpable. Previous speaker doesn't think so. Previous speaker may not be aware of the laws. If intent isn't a standard that will determine the guilt of someone's killing, then why is it on many of our constitutions? Next, she says that the effects is the sole basis. It is not the sole basis for intent takes a major part of it, but I agree to some extent. And South Africa knew that if they buy from other companies, this pharma would stop the process, and they did because they had every right to. The second order consequence of this is the death of South Africans. Now proceeding to my argument, to prove that it's South Africa's fault, I have two arguments for you. First is that these pharmaceutical companies aren't guilty based on the standards of culpability, and secondly, South Africa is guilty based on the standards of intent. On to the first consideration. These pharmaceutical companies didn't have prior knowledge. They didn't have the intent to hurt these South Africans by preventing them from getting their needed medication. They stopped it because South Africa broke the World Treaty. It was the right action, then it is justified. In the law, they need to have intent, forethought, and disregard, very extreme, reckless disregard to lead to the victim's death. I shall argue under these three premises. Firstly, these companies didn't intend to kill the victims. Their intent is to get proper and just compensation for what South Africa has done, which is to disregard their treaty to buy instead from other countries. Secondly, they didn't have the forethought, they didn't plan it. This goes directly hand in hand with the previous consideration. If they didn't intend to do it, why so would they plan it? They had no incentives at all. My partner has proved to you that they didn't know that the act would kill these South Africans. This is now 2/3. It was the negligence on the state's part that the South Africans suffering, because even after the companies pulled out, the South African state did nothing to get their drugs back on the market. The fact that people were already dying from the state's ineffective drugs, yet they didn't make peace with the companies far more access, merely proves that the state was acting on economic intent and not on medical intent in order to help their citizens. This is directly against their role as the government to prioritize health and the well-being of their people. We think that because they kept not making peace with the companies, it proves they didn't care about how many people were dying and getting hurt. Lastly, they weren't reckless nor disregarding. The government story is that they died because these companies stopped giving away their needed medicine. If South Africa followed the treaty, it would have kept more people alive. It's as simple as that. Because it is their right. They have the right to stop these exports according to the treaty, and they didn't. Didn't South Africa foresaw this? They know that if they bought exports, the pharmaceutical companies will stop these exports, and they did. South Africa knew that their exports would be stopped, yet they took the risk. They took the risk, and they lost the lives of these South Africans. Thus, on the basis of intent, disregard, and forethought, aka planning, that's the basis of almost all legal cases in the entire world. These pharmaceutical companies aren't guilty, but the South Africa entry is. And secondly, I'm going to prove to you why South Africa's fault based on the same standards. Firstly, intent. They had the intent to buy export. They knew the effects. The result of it is because they knew that the farmer would hold them accountable if they do. Accountability is the word I was looking for. I'll take you later. South Africa must be held accountable. They knew the risk, yet they took it anyway. You are responsible for the result of your own actions. And the result of South Africa's action is the death of their people. Secondly, forethought. I've already told you that South Africa are aware of the terms of the treaty. If they buy exports, these companies had the right to halt the entire operation. They could have not, but they had the entire right. South Africa, on the other hand, didn't have the right to buy exports. Will we really blame today the people who broke the treaty or the ones who exercised their valid right? Going back to forethought, they knew the effects. They took a coin toss betting that pharmaceutical companies wouldn't pull out, but they did. They were wrong, and they paid for it with these South Africans' lives. They might have got these drugs cheap, but at what cost? It's the cost of South Africans' lives. I'll take the POI.
Hello, your case is running on the whole premise that South African government didn't do anything to try and get back the drugs, or didn't attempt to even contact them. Yet the info is not verified anywhere in the motion. So how do you make your case true? Your case is founded on so many unsupported assumptions.
The premise of your POI is wrong. Our premise is that these South Africans, the South Africa country, knew the effects if they buy exports, which is that it is contradictory to the treaty. And the result of it is that these pharmaceutical companies can halt the operations. What makes this true is the info slide. Only international premise got them to stop the case against the state. Now moving on, thirdly, recklessness. I've told you that they took a pigeon toss. Knowing that pharmaceutical companies could either pull out or not, they thought they would not, but they did. That is extreme recklessness. I won't take any POIs anymore. They risked the life of these people. And for what? To save money, probably. But all this proves that they were reckless. They were reckless enough to break the treaty. They were reckless enough to risk it just for cheapness. And they were so reckless that it led to the death of these South Africans. Lastly, we think that another effect of South Africans' pharmaceuticals is how they were stopped from playing a proper role in their people's pandemic response. Why do we think that they had the most say in helping Africa? It's because they knew the nature of these diseases the most, because they have seen it firsthand and have studied it more heavily than other states. We think that this point of information also proves that they had no intentions to go against their country and hurt their citizens. And for all the reasons stated, we oppose.
I'd like to thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for that speech and for closing the opening half of today's debate. I'll kindly like to call upon the Member of Government to open the closing half of today's debate and further the case for the government bench. Here. Member of Government. Member of Government.
Hello. Okay, let me arrange my sheets and turn on my camera.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I hope I'm audible.
You are very audible.
Okay. Okay. I hope everything is good.
Yeah, sure.
Chair, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we have a situation at hand. There is a risk people are contracting HIV/AIDS. So this is like basically something like an endemic that has occurred in South Africa. So therefore, the government in itself has to respond positively to meet the demands of its people. But then here is the case where death has occurred as a result of the outcomes, or as a result of what has happened between the government and the pharmaceutical companies. Who then should be blamed, right? We think the pharmaceutical companies should be held accountable or culpable for this particular harms, that is death that has occurred to the citizens of South Africa. So this basically, CG and OG, I'm going to show you the clear distinction between both teams, and I'm going to show you why we place above, up, and OG. So before that, let me engage some few cases of opening opposition, right? So the chunk of opening opposition's cases was based on intent. But then, panel note, at a point where you are not able to prove the intent of these people, of these pharmaceutical companies, then we think you cannot justify that they are not responsible for that particular act, because we think we can justify acts clearly by their outcomes and their consequences. That is why in the criminal justice system, we don't use intent to free people. And people will say, oh, I didn't do it, I was forced by Satan and etc. We don't think we use intent to justify what has happened. We use outcomes, what has happened, right? We think when you kill or murder someone, when the death has occurred or the attempted murder is what we use to justify whether or not you committed that particular act or not. We don't use your intent to say, well, I was trying to shoot somewhere and it's landed on your head. We think intent in itself creates a big flaw. But then few characterization before we move on, how this is basically transmitted diseases. And the tipping point is it is spreading and needs quick intervention from the government. What it means is that because the government has an obligation to the contract that exists between the state and its people is one that the state is obliged to take certain extreme measures because it is in a state of urgency. But then B, the nature of these drugs and how they are costly. Panel note, HIV drugs are produced basically in the Western world. What it means is that it is capitalists and etc. that fuel research and all these activities that bring about the production of these drugs. What it means is that these drugs are highly expensive. So it means at a point where this disease is hitting South Africa, the government might not have the financial resources to purchase quality drugs at a broader spectrum. So what it means is that it has to respond to its citizens because there is a demand for it. So what it means is that you can't have a subsidy or a reduction in the price because the capitalists are going to sell it to you regardless of whether you have a pandemic or not. What it means is that the government had that obligation to purchase those particular drugs, those cheap drugs in the first place. So it takes away the chunk of ops arguments on why South Africa didn't buy the drugs from the South Africa boundaries because they could also produce those drugs. We think these drugs are produced in Western world. That is why South Africa in itself didn't buy that drugs from its boundaries. If it was there, they would have. If it was there, they would have bought it there because it was a state of agency and etc. So now, while I'm not taking while the government was justified in the first place, firstly, we think the contract that exists between the government and its citizens is one that ensures that they take extreme measures, right? Secondly, the conditions under which the government acted was one that was justified because it was something that was rising, the disease was rising and etc. So it means it instilled panic and the government had to do things urgently. Exactly the reason why they violated the treaty, because the government cannot exist independent of the external environment and etc. What it means is that the environment and the people are able to shape the goals and actions of the government. Why is this true? Because in the state of pandemic and citizens of South Africa are more likely to pressure the government to give them quick interventions and etc. So we think the government responded because its environment, that is the pressure from citizens, was directly acting upon it. That is why the government in its first place did that particular thing. Also, I've already analyzed to you why they lack the resources and they couldn't do that in the first place. So moving on to my first extension, the principal justification or why we should hold these people culpable, right? So firstly, we think you can hold a person culpable, one, when the person has caused a negative event. What that means is that OO concedes that these people could have the means to test these drugs at etc. because testing of drugs can be done in a particular country. So once the pharmaceutical companies didn't do that, it means they had their own intentions, which was negative because they knew that once they tested it and they found that it wasn't quality enough, they could have said, oh, we are not going to sell it and we are going to run at a loss because these people are profit incentivized. We are going to sell it in any way. So at a point where they didn't test it and they caused a negative event, which was dead, then we think they are highly culpable for that particular act. But then secondly, the act was intentional because they knew that they could have the ability to test it and they didn't do it and ended up selling it to people. And this has caused death among people. So we think they have that basic culpability. We have that agency to hold them culpable. But then notice that
PYO.
failed how we are going to hold them accountable or culpable. How we are going to do that is that we are going to make them pay any forms of reparations that existed to these families because already they've lost their family members. We don't think we can give them money to their dead siblings and etc. So we are going to make them pay for what they've done. And the worst case scenario, we can even criminate and imprison them for that particular action. But then another reason why they failed or another reason why they can be held culpable is that thirdly, the act and its consequences could have been controlled. Why is this true? It means they had an option not to sell, not to take these drugs from the government, knowing very well they could test it. So at a point where they didn't test the drugs, it means they had that ability or they had that moral grounds to be held culpable because they could have controlled whether or not they would take the drugs or not because they have tools and etc. to test them. But then fourthly, they failed in their job because the role of the pharmaceutical companies is to ensure protection to people, right? They are supposed to bring basic health care for these individuals. So at a point where they were negligent to do that, we think they are held culpable. But then lastly, we think they benefited from it. That is why they should be held culpable, because people bought these drugs, they gave them money and etc. Once they enjoy the economic resources of people, they should be held culpable for that particular harm. Principal justification, right? Firstly, they claim it was violation of World Trade Treaties and stifled all supply of AVRs to the south. Then it means they were aware that these things didn't go through enough trials, so they should have tested it before selling it. Once they didn't do that, it means it was intentional, that they already had other mindset to do that in the first place, right? But then uncertainty, right? It is unclear whether the death would have happened if they didn't accept to sell these drugs. It is also certain that people would die when these drugs were not available. So the government played its major role to supply these drugs. What the pharmaceutical companies could have done was that they were aware the government didn't go through full trials and testing. So it was their responsibility to continue the testing and etc. Once they didn't do that, they have failed their jobs. They benefited from it through people buying it and etc. They can be held culpable in that particular regard. Shoot.
POI from OO, don't you think that it's actually like the country? Hello? Hello, don't you think it's drugs from other countries that aren't necessarily being tried because they're cheaper? Like the lack of research might be the reason of its cheapness. But also, even if not, don't you think that it's the state's fault they didn't regulate it, not the companies?
No. We think that even if the state failed in that particular regard, the pharmaceutical companies could have also acted, because at the end of the day, the state doesn't distribute drugs to citizens. It is distributed by pharmaceutical companies. What it means is that these companies would have had that particular agency or that moral grounds to test this drug before delivering it to its citizens or before selling it. So in a world where you have that that ability to do that and you don't do it, then it means you have great incentives, you have other incentives backing you. That is why you didn't do it. So in a world where you're able to cause death by your own act, because you could have controlled it either way, because note, the government didn't say sell this thing by force. It wasn't a manipulated or a forced choice. It means they had a choice to opt out of selling these drugs in particular. So in a world where you don't do that, you are held culpable at a point where I've showed you the grounds on which we hold these people accountable. Clearly, CG shows you that, unlike OG, proud to oppose. Oh, sorry, proud to propose.
I'd like to thank the member of government for that speech, call upon the member of opposition to open the CO case and further the opposition bench's argument, before which I would like to remind all the teams that we don't particularly take anything after the 15-second mark, and continue other than that, just makes your case less convincing, even though we will primarily try to not hold it against you. Thank you.
All right, please, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
All right, so POIs should be in the text space, and I will take you my 50 minutes. All right, beginning my debate in 3, 2, 1. All right, panel, we feel that there was no bench that brought clarification to this debate, and we are going to clarify that this motion to you. Understand that this motion is about how should we prioritize these companies of not violating the treaties over them, like giving out this cheaper drugs. So I think that's the clash of today's debate, and no bench has really engaged that. But then we'll show you why it was legitimate for these pharmaceutical companies to do this particular thing, and we'll show you why these South African governments had they could have taken other alternatives. They could have taken other alternatives to be able to achieve the normal price drug. So we'll show you why they could have taken the alternative and in both words would have basically saved the lives of people that die. So we should, but then firstly on why was it legitimate for these people not to violate the laws, and why was this legitimate for them to do? Understand that one, these people had an incentive to protect their image, and they also had an incentive to protect the image of the national health system and not violate and not violating the World Trade, as to how understand that when there's a contract between two people, and these contracts are bind some particular stuff, so we see no reason why these people should violate the contract, as to how, because if they had violated the contract, it's going to prove that the national health system is not effective like in making laws. So if these people had violated the World Trade Treaties, it's then a narrative that the World Health System is not effective, and there's no how they continue to exist. So we think that at the end of the day there'll be a backlash, and not just on the PH companies, but also a backlash on the World Health System. So we'll show you why that is not actually it is not legitimate for them to have done. But then understand that why should we still hold this South African government accountable to an extent, as to how, first of all, understand that these people had the incentive to always protect their people at any cost. So they could have taken other alternatives that would have made them to get the normal jobs, and not even violate and not make the PH companies to violate the laws and all of these things. We'll show you as to how, first of all, in some years back in South Africa, when there was issue of legal rights and all of this economic rights, South Africa was able to generate word sympathy, and the word the whole world came to their to their care, as to how, for example, understand that when we are talking about global health crisis, understand that people are always willing to stretch their hands to them. So if South Africa had called out the world in general for them to be able to for them to be able to get funding in getting this particular drug, so it means that these PH companies will not violate the treaties, and as to how we'll still be able to save life. So we think that and we think that at the end of the day, these people had the incentive to take other alternative that was not taken, and there's no legitimate reason why we should not hold these PH companies accountable for their action. Understand that throughout the government bench, they only argued on cases of accountability and all of this. But then we feel that accountability should exist in both ways, as to how the people should always be able to hold their government accountable for always for always wanting to help them at all, for always wanting to help them at all, because also what happened then, the government did not take extra miles in order to help their country, and not allow these PH companies to violate their to violate the World Trade Treaty. So we think that we think that it is not justified to hold these people accountable, because so we think that on the argument of accountability does not work in this debate. Outrightly, we'll be able to clarify this motion and show you why we actually win over our opposition, because opposition did not show the comparison between the World Trade Treaties and why they shouldn't have given out this cheap drugs. So we think that throughout this debate, government bench have only been running cases of as to how this PH companies they nationally allowed these people to die. But then that's it. Because of when we talk about social contract or treaties, people should always at every time in time always should not always violate the stuff that they've signed. Because of if these PH countries had violate this World Trade Treaties, it should not only affect them in large instances, it should also affect the World Health System, and may even cause so many backlash on them. So we think that if the World Health System could crash, all of these PH companies might not even exist, and will not have anybody will not even have anybody to produce drugs for us. So at the end of the day, we should always protect the image of PH companies, and also protect the image of this World Trade Treaties, the World Trade Treaties, as to because of at the end of the day, no bench has showed you why the image of the World Health System is very important, and why people should not always violate that particular thing. Because of South Africa had the incentive to do crowdfunding or even generate income from international organization, and be able to protect their people and get the normal drugs and all of these things. Then we've clarified that to us in today's day. But then opening government argued a case as to how PH countries are always business profit. But then we consider that these countries are capitalized, but we think that even though a country a company can be so like a company can be so capitalized, they should not always go against the the ethics that that builds those two together. Cause if they go against those ethics, like it will not only affect them. So it's going to affect the world in general, and not just in South Africa. In South Africa, that people will die. People will even die around the world because when we don't have a national body that can always control or regulate how drugs and all of these things can function. So we think that it's going to affect the world in general, not just South African countries. So panel, at the end of the day, understand that the best that wins this debate is the best that clearly showed you why show you as to why we could basically not violate the right and still be able to save the people's life. But then if South Africa had chosen other alternatives to be able to get all of these drugs, there's no how would have lost the. But then these PH companies are so legitimate to not give out to not give out those cheap products because of it's basically going to affect them and also affect the world at large. So we think that in our own world, we've shown you why we can even both save the world, where we could have saved the people from dying and still not violate this particular thing. And I think that no bench is today's debate as we run these arguments in and of itself. So panel, lastly, understand that when we talk about legitimacy of government to protect people, understand that at every point in time, the people should always be able to garner trust from their people. And if the government is not always willing to go to extra length, to give full to give maximum security, maximum protection to their people, such governments can be so we should always hold such governments accountable because of in this debate. If we only hold the PH companies accountable, there's no how we're able to even check and balance the government because we think that at every point in time the government can always source for cheap things to always protect us because of we're not able to hold them accountable. We are busy holding other people's accountable. So on the long run, we should always be able to check our companies by making them go to extra lengths or take other alternatives to give us the maximum protection that we need, not by sourcing for cheap products that can make these people violate the treaties. That's not going to affect their own government, but also affect the whole world at large. So at the end of the day, should all at the end of the day, we should prioritize the house that shows you how we can both save those people in that time and still not violate the treaties that were already existing in status quo then. So, but then what other things did you get from the government? They were talking about how this was a state of urgency and this PH companies should have given out those. So, but then even though we consider that okay, fine, it's a state of urgency, but then we should not always prioritize how we should not always because of little things, not we should not always put the whole world's life at stake because of a very little stuff. But then so at the end of the day, South Africa had the incentives to take other alternatives like a variety of alternatives. They could do crowdfunding, they could ask for funds from international organizations and be able to save their people's life by giving them the good jobs and the maximum protection that they need. But then they did not do all of these things, and I see no reason why we should continually hold the PH companies accountable when we could have basically take other alternatives and still save people's life. We are proud to oppose. Yeah.
I'd like to thank the member for that speech. Call upon Let's call upon the next speaker to further today's debate here. Thank you. Gov. Government will buy there. Okay.
All right. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. So if I can proceed with my speech, I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So I think one of the major things that we should be engaging in today's debate is the idea that do these pharmaceutical companies, do they have the right to actually take the number of lives that they took in this particular regard, all because of patency, or because of capitalist exploitations? I think those are very, very important things that we should be engaging in today's debate. But first, into rebuttals before I go into my positive matters. So CEO tells us like these guys, they have an incentive not to violate that particular contract and stuff like that. But the problem with that is that it does not actually send a narrative that the health system is actually messed up the way they actually paint it. But the narrative that actually now sends in their own world is that the world, like the health system is one that is actually ruthless and one that is actually not going to actually rise to third world countries' help when they need it. Because you have to understand the fact that these pharmaceutical companies that are actually dragging the South African and the likes, they are not the World Health Organization itself. They are just like a part of it. So what happens in those particular instances is that they actually took an illegitimate burden upon themselves to actually do all those things in those particular instances. But it talks about the image of the company and stuff like that. And this is the alternative and why CO loses this debate. They tell us that instead of this particular thing, they should actually try other things like crowdfunding and stuff like that. Of course, the world is they are facing a pandemic at that particular instance. A lot of people actually have to spend money to actually do a lot of things. So you cannot just say that maybe, for example, in a world where the world is experiencing a pandemic like coronavirus and likes, and just tell them that keep on doing and stuff like that. We feel at the end of the day, they're not going to get the required utilities. But they tell us that go to international bodies. We feel like the international bodies are there. They know our pains are suffering. We're even afraid of neocolonialism and the like. So we can't keep on doing this. But in that particular regard, what we actually have to engage in today's debate is the fact that these guys, they are like tired of actually feeding off from these big guys. At the end of the day, what you have in a world whereby you keep on living out of the luxury of these guys is that they see you as like someone that's always lower to them in those particular instances. But I think what we should engage in today's debate is that South Africa is a developing country, like my partner told you. They don't have the technical know-how, they don't have like the facility, the money to actually bring about this or to actually buy these drugs like this guy lied to you. So they tell us about generating income, so we feel like it's not something that is actually feasible because these guys, they have tried every means possible. That's why they actually resorted to this. You cannot just expect that there's going to be a pandemic and the first thing a country is actually going to do is actually to run off to go and buy fake drugs. We feel like that time that particular swing actually occurred is one that is like very, very distant to like the origination of HIV and AIDS. So we feel like they've tried. That was why they actually engaged that particular one. But things my partner engaged to you about characterization that these guys didn't even engage is the fact that third world countries doesn't actually have the required funding to actually do this at like all these particular points in time. But we actually understand the contract, the social contract that exists between states and it's ones that ensures that they continually help their citizens and go to any length to make sure that they have the trust of their citizens. In instances where these guys don't do nothing and keep on folding arms, that people die, there's going to be vandalization of properties, there's going to be rioting and stuff like that. Those are things that we're actually guiding against. We told you how old the people looks like. We told you that these companies might be the ones ready to help in future occurrences. We tell you as to how we might be levying them for some charges, things that OG talk about, why we think we ultimately rank above them in character.
All right, understand that the info slide they say that they've tried other means. They only tried that cheap pastors, but then it has already existed that from time memorial, South Africa were able to generate what sympathy when they had the issue of legal rights and economic rights. So,
all right. You cannot say that they should keep on living on the whites. That's the whole idea of racial indiscrimination. This guy sees us as people that keep on living on them. We can't keep on doing that to them. But when they tell you as to how they've not tried other means, like it's not in the info slide, you're an advanced debater. You don't expect every information to be written in the info slide and stuff like that. So, but my partner engaged to you, like the reason why we actually want to hold them culpable. Because in a world in a world where we don't hold them culpable, we keep on fueling stereotypical narratives. What we keep on doing is that these African countries are laggards, these African countries are people that we can just clamp down anyhow. We believe that all these stereotypical narratives that we fuel in like opposition's word is one that is very, very dangerous. But what we actually have to engage in today's debate is that it compromises their stance as moral arbitrators, and it compromises the stance of the nobility that exists in the health status. But we keep on we don't see health status as something that is actually being noble again, because they've actually killed a lot of people. They have the right to actually make these drugs to be cheaper. The drugs that you consider to be good, why didn't you make it cheaper? Why did you give it to the South Africans? Why should you block the only means that they have and allow a lot of people to die? We believe that that's what happens in those words is that you start encouraging people to actually want to join, and you actually bring about more deaths. But what happens in Ops world is how they hurt the supremacy of governments. Governments in most instances make radical decisions to save the lives of their citizens. What happens in opposition's world is that governments actually see themselves as less capable of making those particular decisions, because you've hurt their supremacy. They've actually made something a bold decision to actually cater for the welfareism of their citizens, but you've actually hunted them down. We feel like that hurt that happens to the supremacy of the governments and make them look bad is one that's actually very, very important in today's debate. But when they tell you about the image of the company, we feel like what is actually even much more important is the image of the government in and out of themselves. The image that they gave to the government in those particular instances is one that the government are laggards, two that the government does not have the technical know-how, and we will keep on clamping down on them because they are third world countries. We feel like that is very, very problematic, because the narrative we then send is that these guys doesn't actually have what it takes to take care of their citizens. What happens in those particular instances is that the whole world sees these people as weak people. More exploitation happens in their own world. We feel like if they want to argue on how sovereignty or stuff like that, they should have actually made the means to actually give these guys the drugs that they consider as good. They should actually look for a way to subsidize them and actually bring them down. Like, that's the whole essence. Why we actually go against this thing and why we want to hold them culpable is because they make human life look so degradable. That is something that is very, very important. What happens in their world is that people now see lives as something that you can just trade and toil with anyhow. We feel our world is the best world where people know that human lives are very, very important, instead of actually wanting to maybe enforce things like patency and likes. We actually prefer to actually reduce the cost that comes with this money and actually pay a form of reparation, because we understand that all these African countries, they've been previously disenfranchised from time immemorial. What happens in our world is that we see it as a form of paying reparations, and we actually make sure that they get all those utilities that we get. And we understand the fact that in these third world countries, that is where we have the cases of HIV and AIDS to be at its peak, not even at this first world countries. So in a world whereby they are suffering heavily because of these backlashes, why should we leave them to keep on suffering? Why should we leave them at the mercy of capitalists to actually exploit them? We feel like those are things that are very, very problematic in today's debate. But finally, we think that why we want this debate is because we've actually told you about the sovereignty of the states and why it's very, very important for states to be able to make drastic decisions so that their citizens are going to know that they are capable of doing those things. We understand the fact, we've explained the fact to you, how this is actually going to bring about stereotypical narratives where we keep on making it look good that South Africans can die and stuff like that. We've been able to engage you that the best thing for these pharmaceutical companies is when they are seen as moral arbitrators, not capitalists that keeps on exploiting and see life as a bargaining chip. We feel like it's very, very problematic when lives is actually seen as a bargaining chip, when life is actually very, very degradable to an extent that you can like just cut off a particular thing that is actually going to lead to thousands of lives. We saw the high numbers of lives that was lost. I think what opposition should engage is a reason why killing should be legitimate when these people actually have the right drugs, when their countries can actually make it subsidized and all those stuff. Those are things they do not engage. Now, if they want to engage us, they should actually explain to us why governments are not legitimate to make drastic decisions when everything else they've tried has actually failed. As governments, we keep on having the rights to actually want to try to make that difference. They have to actually engage to us why all those things is actually very, very problematic. But we engage the image of the companies, how at the best case scenario, the image of these companies are even seen as bad. That was why they even actually cancelled it at the end of the day, because they were having heavy backlashes. People were seeing them as killers. People were seeing them as ruthless in those particular instances. They are going to lose buying in if people keep on seeing a pharmaceutical company that should be seen as a world lifesaver, as something that is now hurting the third world countries. We feel like what is going to happen is discrimination and all those stuff. They should engage to us why all those problems that we've been able to analyze is very, very, like, is something that should actually go on. We feel like on these clashes, we are proud to propose. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to thank the government for that speech. I once again remind you guys to be kindly time sensitive. We will not listen to anything after 7:15, and call upon the opposition whip to close today's debate and further the case for the open opposition, for the opposition bench. Here. Up with.
My partner is here. He's going to use my my system.
No problem.
Did you get that? Okay.
Yes. Just make him visible, please. Please make yourself visible. Upward. Upward, please make yourself visible. Upward, feel free to start.
Give me a few seconds to arrange my papers. What about the stuff that What about the stuff that all three debates? All right. Okay, on mute. Yeah. Am I audible, panel? Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. So sorry for the delay. Starting my debate in 3, 2, 1. Right. One thing that is very essential in today's debate, right, is how that both parties were involved in whatever could have caused the death of all of these people. And then the question then becomes, who should be held culpable, right? We need to understand, right, that firstly, from what you get from my partner, that pharmaceutical companies are not people that are incentivized to cater for the lives of these people directly. The state, the government itself, owes the people like that right and that duty. Since they have a social contract that binds these people together, all of these things is what you get from my partner. When we elect a certain political leader to a certain political post, there's a social contract that binds us both together, which then ensures that these people cater for the lives of us. Now, when you begin to hear all around the debate about issues of urgency and accountability, right, you need to understand how that the government did not consider this urgency when it began to order for drugs from other institutions. There is a world treaty, which my partner clearly shows to you, right? There is a world standard for what a drug ARV should look like. When a country or a state then begins to go out of this world treaty to begin to outsource from like local drugs or whatever, there is no assurance. Unlike what you get from opening opposition when they began to tell you how that these drugs are gotten cheaply or what have you. We say, regardless of whether it was gotten cheaply or costly, the major point is that it is against the World Treaty, which means it is not following the world standard on what a ARV drug should look like. What it then means is that even on their clash of urgency, right, there is no careful inspection of what the lives of the citizen would look like when these drugs are brought in. Rather, the South African state probably did it to cut costs and whatever. We say, like my partner clearly showed you, right, that if money is the problem of the South African state, right, and they really need to treat all the urgency, there is need for them to look for other means to source for wealth. We have seen in status go out that certain countries go out of boundaries to get and accumulate wealth for their citizens. And this is what South Africa in and of itself should have done in a moment like this. And my partner began to show you how that crowdfunding is a good example of what they could have outsourced for wealth. We say, if urgency is the key matter in catering for the health of the citizens of the state, right, there is need for us to introspect and check very well the kind of drugs that come into the state. The World Treaty is a standard drug that have been clearly satisfied by the world companies and organizations and whatever pharmaceutical companies. But these drugs that they are bringing from an outside source is one that does not allow for all of these checks and has not been checked. It goes against the World Treaty, and that is the problem we have on it. When it comes to the clash of accountability, right, we need to understand one thing into this debate, that you cannot hold people accountable when solely they are not the one responsible for the safety of the lives of these people. We need to understand how that these pharmaceutical companies operate under two authorities. First authority is on the authority of the state, right? And secondly is on the authority of this World Treaty. They are bounded by these two authorities, which makes them very limited in their dealings and activities, meaning that they cannot directly influence the lives of the citizens without first consulting these both parties. What do I mean by this? If a pharmaceutical company has an ARV drug that it can use to save the lives of the people of the state, right, it cannot exclusively on its own procure these drugs to the people of the state. It has to first check if this drug is in line with the World Treaty first, and secondly, if the states where these pharmaceutical companies operate allows that the drug be distributed, obviously. So we say that on the clash of accountability, we cannot hold people accountable if they are not the direct influencers of certain issues of life. Since these pharmaceutical companies are not the direct influencers of the health and all of these things of these people that will clearly show you how you go from my partner's speech, then we cannot hold them accountable. We say from our word that the best party to be held accountable in such a situation like this and to be held culpable is obviously the government, because on three levels, you got all of these things from my partner, right? No new cases, right? On three levels. Firstly, is that they did not consider the lives of their people over urgency. There is a way up here. Fine, it is urgent, there needs to be life, but they went for a cheaper cost without asking themselves the question of what is more valuable to the lives of the citizens of the state. All right, what's your POI? Shoot.
Hi, yes. So from 1998 to 2001, they were on trial because they were accused by mad companies for breaking treaties. But for 4 years, the case was never won exactly because they couldn't prove that they broke the treaty. So your whole point wouldn't stand.
All right, thank you very much. Awesome. Right, panel, you see where the POI is going, right? The reason why they would not win a case against a government is because the government is like the ruler of the states, right? That is why you begin to get that nuance when we begin to tell you that these people are not the ones in charge of dictating the kind of life that their people live. We say that the only reason why such a case could not be won in court over the government, right, is because they are dealing with the government and they have all of the powers in and of themselves to handle all of these things. What is a government? A government owns the judiciary system. A government owns the lawyers, the judges, and all of these things. How then can a pharmaceutical company win a case against the government so easily? We say that 4 years is so little a time for a pharmaceutical company to war against the state and expect to win so cheaply, right? Because the government must have handled and checked all of these things even before they went out of their way to outsource all of these drugs. Clearly, they knew the implication of what they were doing and would have arranged things in place. We say, if they had not won this case in court, that is not the issue. The issue is that people died, right? And then who should be held culpable? And that is the reason why we're having today's debate, right? Back to what you get from my partner. My partner clearly showed you three things, right? How that there's the incentive to violate the World Treaty. So what it means, basically, from what you go from my partner is that when you allow this government or this state to go on held culpable, or you don't hold them accountable, because what it means is that when you hold pharmaceutical companies accountable, you let the state or the government to go freely. What it means is that it then incentivizes this government or states by and large, right, to be able to violate other world treaties. We need to understand how that the world and the states by and large is a social function, right? Meaning things are interconnected and they work hand in hand. What it then means is that when a state broke an international treaty and goes scot-free with it, it then incentivizes the state to do more of these things in other spheres of life. say they did it in health and then nothing came about it, even if the lives of people were saved or whatever, that's like the best case scenario. But they went against the world rating. It then incentivized this state, right, to use this kind of nature and this activity, this narrative in other spheres of life, say insecurity, and they do not care what the backlash could look like. But panel, we need to understand what could happen in the worst case scenario, like my partner clearly showed you, right? That there's even a possibility, right? This it opens up the state to a kind of manipulation from people. When we begin to outsource drug that is not covered under the umbrella of the World Treaty, what it means is that certain people could hide under the umbrella of this state where you're getting these drugs from and influence your state or attack your state because there is no proper check mechanism that has this world standard, and that's the one thing you get from my partner. My partner also shows you, right, that another alternative could have been crowdfunded, right? How I will show you that if the problem of the South African state, like it clearly ran out through the debate, is wealth accumulation of money or funding, we say that they could have gone for crowdfunding like we've had it in so many countries today, and that is not a new thing. Rather than outsourcing at the expense of consideration of the value of the kind of drugs that they are getting. The World Treaty is one that ensures value, and they were inconsiderate of all of these things. Lastly, panel, right? The theme that wins today's debate is one that clearly shows us on the clashes, right? What is best for the people? If we say that a situation is urgent, does it care for the life and health of the people by and large? If it does not, then it is problematic. We say from our word that the government did what it did probably because they didn't have money, and they will provide an alternative that lack of wealth is not enough incentive for a government to do certain things without proper care or check mechanism about what their state would look like and all of these things. If their point, right, in today's debate is accountability, we say we cannot hold the pharmaceutical company accountable for such an issue like this because they do not have a direct influence. They do not have a direct influence on what happens with the life of this people, because I clearly showed you and my partner that they are under two authorities, the state and then the World Treaty. We are proud to win from side CO.
I'd like to thank the opposition for that speech. And we've come to the close of today's debate. I'd like to call on myself and the other panelists to head to the Discord channel, the Adjudication Forum 1 Discord channel, so that we can gather there and talk about the round and come to a unanimous call, hopefully. Beyond that, I'd like to thank all the speakers for what have been really amazing speeches and wish them best of luck going forward.
So are we joining the Discord channel?
Yes, panelists should kindly join the Discord channel.
Okay.
The Adjudication Forum 1 Discord channel to deliberate on the call. Thank you.
Okay, the panel.
All right, yeah, thank you everyone for the amazing round. I hope you all enjoyed the finals of this healthy debate. Yeah, we've had 4 teams to sort it out in the grand finale of this debate on a very, very interesting motions. A very interesting motion related to the cure of HIV and what's really very important for companies to do during such case, and the priorities say whether health is what really matters, the health of the people, saving lives vis-a-vis profit, structures, bureaucracy, and everything. We'll appreciate your engagement on that particular issue and topic. So thank you very much, and thank you very much. All right, next on our program, we will have the keynote speech that will be from our beloved founder of Unitalks. But before that, I would request Professor Diana to say hello to us and share with us a few items. Then later on, we'll have our founder, Professor Wallace, give us the keynote speech. So kindly, let's stick around. We have the award ceremony after here, and we have much more activities for you. You're most welcome. Professor Diana is the Vice President of Global Unitalks and in charge of academics. She's our mother in Unitalks. Yes, our mother in Unitalks. She has always mentored us, and she has always helped us to grow. I'm also a product. I've been nurtured through her to grow to where I am today. Thank you so much, Professor Diana, and you're most welcome.
Thank you, Hilary, for inviting and having me. Thank you very much. Let me give you a congratulations for organizing such a wonderful debate and with such an interesting topic. Am I audible?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, thank you. Honorable International Jurist Panel, from the chair to the House and the founder of Global Unitalks, Professor Wallace, Unitalks Uganda President Mr. Hillary, the young debaters who are debating today, and the live audience. Greetings to all of you. Today's debate, all the teams on the House, from the opening government, opening opposition, closing government, closing opposition, had a very interesting arguments and a very strong battle. And always also they were raising the POI, which was very interesting from time to time. I could also see that it was very well time managed and well researched. How well you have argued for the motion and against the motion. That was very interesting to see how the health matters and how we are doing it. Well, when it shows from the Africa's point of view. I wish all of you all the best and congratulations, guys. All of you have done a great job. And also I welcome all the new team members who will be joining Unitalks Uganda. And it has been really nice to see that Hillary has been there taking the presidentship of Unitalks Uganda from past year, and how well he has managed and how many events he has organized. So we are very proud for Hillary. Hillary, you have done an excellent job. Thank you. Back to you, Hillary or Professor.
Thank you so much, Professor, for those inspiring and encouraging words. As I've always told them, you need to keep practicing until you get there. Learning never ends, and you need to use all the opportunities you have and the platforms to exploit your potential. It is really very encouraging when we see speakers debate a motion they have only seen for the last 15 minutes, and they only have to prepare their speeches in 15 minutes. It is really an exciting way to see how people can really literally think beyond the box and try to create more and more interesting arguments in just 15 minutes. Thank you so much, Professor Diana. At this moment, I would like to welcome our beloved founder of Global Unitalks, Professor Wallace. He's the founder of Global Unitalks. He's the head of Global Unitalks. He's the architect of Global Unitalks, and he is a wonderful person I have met for the last 1 year. There's a lot to always learn from him, and many students have learned a lot from him as he continues to inspire the world and inspire everyone, especially students, through his devoted towards transforming their academics and trying to create a different lives of many. We appreciate your work, Professor Wallace, throughout the world, and all the Unitalks students are very proud of you. Thank you so much. At this moment, I'd like us to welcome Professor Wallace. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Hilary. You are doing an awesome job as a president of Global Unitalks Uganda. Congratulations for your lovely team, which you have selected. I'm sure you use a lot of wisdom and selection process so that Global Unitalks Uganda can go places. You are one of the very active president out of 177 countries where Global Unitalk is present. And we are very proud of you, and you are doing quite well. We really appreciate it very much. So dear friends, good evening to all of you. On this World AIDS Day, and indeed every day, we remember the millions of lives lost to HIV over several decades. We also celebrate the struggles and resilience of those alive today. Today's young generation Z should be the one who should take the step forward to eradicate this deadly disease. First, to beat this deadly disease, we must strengthen the rights of women and girls and gender equality. It is unacceptable that HIV remains the leading cause of death for women aged 15 to 49 years worldwide. Youth need to bring women empowerment, as millions of poor women and girls are denied the right to decide about their health and bodies. Youth need to bring power, equality, and agency to all young women and girls. It is not a question of science. It's a question of inequality, powerlessness, and exclusion. Hence, youth need to bring change to the world. I believe that youth can do everything. And Generation Z is the one who needs to shoulder these responsibilities. It is everyone's right to access health and information and to treat it with respect and dignity. On the World AIDS Day, I call upon all the worldwide youths to come forward and beat AIDS. I firmly believe that if they focus, work hard, this disease can end. I'm very confident about it. There is a need for investment in more scientific innovation for prevention, testing, treatment, and care, and empower communities to lead the response on the ground. We must find national pathways towards sustainable, long-term financing of AIDS responses. All these are achievable. They are an exciting and winning agenda, of course, and youths have a significant role to play with. And when we win, we all not just end AIDS, we'll have fairer, more equitable, and healthier societies. Youth need to bring societies based on gender equality and justice for all. We will live lives where everyone is valued and can fully exercise their rights and where nobody is left behind. Young people should care about health education, including comprehensive sexual education, social services, and access to youth-friendly services. Youth should also engage in decision-making and should take an active role in spreading awareness and precautions, as precautions is better than cure, as we all know. This is a call of the World's AIDS Day. There is no time to lose. We can do it, guys. Generation Z, you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulder. As somebody said, you are the last alphabet, Z, the Z of the, and you have to make sure that you end a lot of things which need to be done for the betterment of society, sustainable development, harmonious world, and world with all mankind exists safely. So with this, I congratulate all of you for your lovely debate, which you have made today. And you have worked very hard. I can see that. You had a lot of eloquence, a lot of smart discussions, arguments. I think you can continue doing it. And I'm sure one day you'll all be very successful. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I wish you all the luck. And I request now the President of Uganda, Mr. Hilary Turanwe, please take over. Thank you. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Professor Wallace. Professor Wallace is the founder of Global Unitalks. Unitalks is his brainchild, and he works with every one of us to try to speak ideas, to follow ideas, and to spread ideas. Unitalks is of the students, by the students, and for the students. Now, for those that are joining us today, once again, you're most welcome to Global Unitalks family, and would love to keep with you and work with you for the rest of the journey that lies ahead of us. Thank you for choosing to join Unitalks family, where we are, and as we are part of the Gen Z generation. So because Z, it is important that the actions are valuable and will be propagated in the future, that even those that come after us will be proud of the actions we made, of the stand that we made. Thank you so much, Professor, for those inspiring and motivating words and encouragement. At this moment, I would like to introduce to you the new country team of Global Unitalks Uganda. However, as some were unable to make it for reasons one, two, or more, and however, there are those that have been able to make it and are here. So at this moment, I'd like to, I'll be welcoming each one of them, and probably they will have to say a word and meet you for the first time, and you will meet them for the first time. So I'm really excited that you are meeting for the first time. This is like the inauguration, while it's important that you're also having the finals today. So it is killing two birds with one stone. All right. First, I'll begin with Ms. Katoza Akampurira. you're most welcome. Say something.
Thank you so much, Hilary. It's a pleasure meeting you all. My name is Kachoza Akamprida, General Secretary-elect. I'm glad to be part of the group of the Gallant Executive Committee in Uganda that has been elected, and the entire family of Global Unitalks. It's yet another challenge for me to explore how much I can offer to the world and how much I can do with my leadership and the ideas that I have at hand. So it's a big opportunity for me and you all that have given me the opportunity. Thank you so much. And I'm ready to take on the mantle. Yeah, work hand in hand with the team. Yeah, thank you so much.
Kakihoza Kampurira, she's the General Secretary-elect of Global Unitalks Country Team. Most welcome and thank you for coming through. And next is Chairman Regan Ronald. Please open your video, unmute and talk to us. Thank you.
Your microphone is closed, Mr. Kaimian.
Regan, you.
Okay. Are you getting me there?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I can hear you.
Are you getting? Oh, okay. I take this pleasure and sincere gratitude as well as natural duty. Thank the organization as well as the writer from the founders of the Global Unitalks International. And gratitude and a very huge hand clap of thanks for the people who have marginalized and giving us such an opportunity to come and share the different ideas that we can combine and come out with the best solution for the different ideologies and things that are affecting the youth in the globe. I ran part in the Global Unitalks, and I took part as both a speaker and as well as a debater. Therefore, as I conclude, I'd like to thank you. Thank you very much for organizing such occasions, and I'll be glad to continue participating with the organization, as well as if there is an opportunity, I'm very open and ready for it. Thank you very much, writer from the co-founders. I'm very glad. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Regan, for those words. Yeah, we appreciate you and thank you for signing up to be part of the Unitalks Uganda team, and we are proud of you. Thank you for committing to serve us in the next 1 year and more. I'd like to welcome Mukisa Benjamin Peter. He's our head of social media and technical design. You're most welcome.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Hilary, and everyone who has attended this meeting. I am Mukisa Peter Benjamin. I am the leader of technical design and social media of Global Unitalks in Uganda. So it is an honor to be able to serve as a member of this great cause, and I am willing and able to bring about change and improve on the social and economic well-being of the young people in Uganda as far as I can go, using the opportunity that has been given to me by the Global Unitalks. Thank you very much to the founders. Thank you very much to the organizers. Thank you very much to Hilary and everyone that has been able to bring this opportunity to us, as well as to be able to serve to this great cause. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Benjamin. Mukisa is our head of social media and technical design. That's a very, very sensitive issue, sensitive section. So you need to devote enough energy to it, because ideally the G and Z generation works on social media. So you need to keep that very, very crucial as you run our activities. And next we have Muchivi Calvin, the head of student affairs. Kindly open your video and say something to us. Calvin Muchivi. All right. Unfortunately, it seems he left the meeting, and it so happens because of the internet issue that really happened. The president was unable to attend. He was able to send in his apologies earlier because he had a family issue. And yes, I was seeing the vice president around, but unfortunately, I really can't trace them. Sometimes it's the network, but in case they are able to rejoin before we end, I'll be glad to give them an opportunity to say something. If there is anyone that perhaps I've not seen that is part of the country team, elect kindly unmute and say something in case I have skipped you. Otherwise, thank you.
It's unbelievably I'm going to be dead. Oh my God, Anita, you want to be dead? Oh.
All right, yeah, thank you. We'll get to interact with the others who are unable to make it for this meeting. I hope they'll join us in the next Unitalks event, and we shall give them the chance to register themselves then and continue to engage with them. Thank you so much, Professor, and thank you everyone that has been part of this grand finale. We started off with so many competitors. Sorry, that was a network glitch. We started off with so many competitors, both in the speech category and the debate category, and then we have come to the end of this competition. We had 42 teams sign up, and today we have reached the grand final 4, and we'll have one champion at the end of the day. But we appreciate everyone that signed up for this competition, because what matters most is the learning process. Be able to learn from your peers, but also learn from your mistakes, from the feedback that we were able to get from the judges. That was very, very encouraging. We have seen more growth through this particular engagement, and also with other Unitalks events that have continued to impact the students in different ways. So now we'll head to the award ceremony. We would like to recognize some speakers that were outstanding in this particular competition, both in the speech category and both in the debate category. Each of these will be awarded certificates that will be sent to them later, but for now, we'd like to recognize them for their tireless effort that they have and commitment towards this tournament. Thank you everyone for coming to the end of the Healthy Event 2021, and thank you for the tireless effort. Thank you for the contributions. Thank you for participating, and thank you and congratulations to you all. I will begin with a speech category on our awards and recognizing the speakers who have done tremendous job in this competition. I'll begin with the speech category awards. And the fifth best speaker in the speech category is Beatrice Preta. Congratulations to you. In fourth position, our best speaker, we have Owolabo Victor. Congratulations to you. And our second runner-up for the speech event at Healthy, of the speech category at the Healthy Event 2021, we have Chamanywa Regan Ronald. Congratulations to you. And the first runner-up of the Health Event 2021 is Bionavie Joan. We congratulate you for your tireless effort and commitment to this event. Congratulations. And the final and the best speaker of this competition in the speech category is none other than Elizabeth Acheng Ashley. Congratulations, congratulations. Thank you everyone that participated in this category. Our congratulations, Elizabeth Acheng Ashley, as the overall speaker in the speech category. We will now head to the debate category. The debate category awards. As we await the results of the grand finale, we'll proceed with the best speaker awards, and then we will continue with the teams that won this. All right, we had 3 speakers tying on the 8th position. So we will not have the 8th, we will not have the 10th and the 9th. So we had 3 speakers tying on the 8th position. The 8th best speaker of the competition with an average of 73.67 is Kate. Congratulations, Kate, for making it to the top speakers of the competition. Still on 8th position, with an average of 73.67, we have Bruce Samson. Congratulations, congratulations. Still on the 8th position with an average of 73.67, we have Hassan Osman. Congratulations to you. And still tying on the 8th position with an average of 73.67, we have Hassan Osman. Congratulations and congratulations. Good job. And the 5th best speaker, we also had 3 speakers tying on this position of 5th best speaker. With an average of 74.33, we have Eunice Asare. Congratulations to you. Still tying on the 5th position of best speaker with an average of 74.33, we have Marcus De La Rosa. Congratulations, congratulations. And still tying on the 5th position with an average of 74.33, we have Ajayi Ayodeji Joshua. Congratulations and congratulations. 4th best speaker of the tournament with an average of 76.00, we have Ariela Mirandla. Congratulations to you and thank you and congratulations for making it to the top speakers. The 2nd best speaker of the tournament of the average of the Healthy Debates 2021 with an average of 77.00 is Donka Archimedes. Congratulations, congratulations. Oh, sorry, that is our third best speaker. And that third best speaker with an average of 77.00 is Donka Ajmins. And the second best speaker of the tournament with an average of 77.00 is Owolabi Victor Olowatobi. Congratulations to you. And the overall best speaker with an average of 78, that was an error, with an average of 78.67 is Kelvin Delali. Congratulations to you, and thank you for making it to the top speakers and emerging the overall best speaker of the event. We'll now await the results from the grand final, and they'll be announced shortly. All right, we have the results of the grand final coming in 2 minutes. So yes, I thank you everyone who made it to the grand finale. We appreciate you. You have come thus far from all the prelims and making it among the top 4 teams that made it to the grand final. It was a panel of 5 judges, and the following consensus was reached on which team wins the tournament and which team ranks as first runner-up of this competition. The results will be coming in just a minute from now. All right, we have our results of the grand final, and from what the judges have deliberated upon, and usually judged in British parliamentary, we judge you, you were judged on 1, the speaker burdens, 2, on the team burdens, but 3, on the team burdens, on the roles you're supposed to fulfill in the debate, and then 3, you're judged on the clashes that happened in the debate and how best you won on those clashes. You are judged on the structure of your arguments and how you were able to analyze most of the key arguments in a debate. If you're on the closing half, you are expected to bring an extension to the debate, as well as do all what is necessary in the debate. After serious deliberation from a panel of 5 judges, all the judges have agreed that the team that ranks as first runner-up of the Healthy Debates 2021 is none other than, on a split of 3-2, 3 judges have voted for this team and 2 judges have voted against this team, is none other than the opening opposition. Congratulations to you all, the first runners-up of the annual Healthy Event 2021, opening oppositions. Congratulations, congratulations. And the overall winner, on a unanimous decision, all the 5 judges have voted for this team as the team that has emerged the best in the grand finale of the Healthy Debates 2021 on a 5-0 decision by the judges is none other than a team that had the best key arguments in the debate, a team that analyzed most in the debate, and the team that interpreted the motion to the best than any other team in this round. And that is none other than, on a unanimous decision, the opening government. Congratulations, and congratulations to you all for making it to the grand finale. 21. Thank you, and congratulations to everyone. All right, and this marks the end of our event. Thank you everyone for coming through to this debate, and those have been the winners of this tournament, the outstanding speakers. We'll be sending you your certificates later on with time, and congratulations to you all. Thank you for coming through, and hopefully we see you next year for this event. But otherwise, we will keep interacting via our Unitalks platform as Unitalks Uganda, as together as we link up and align ourselves to the whole agenda of the Unitalks family. Otherwise, at this point, I'd like to welcome,
Thank you, Hilary.
Mr. Wallace to give us the concluding remarks and close this event. Thank you.
I'm very excited. Congratulations to all the winners. Give a big round of applause. I think they're awesome, and they have done a great job. And it gives me a confidence. I always believe that Generation Z can do everything if they want. So now you have a lot of roles and responsibilities ahead of us and ahead of all of you in terms of whatever we are at the moment around the world. On this occasion, I also want to invite the winners of today as a direct entry to our December 26th, the day after Christmas, to join Global Unitalks Global Youth Speech Competition. And the topic is Role of Generation Z in 21st Century. So all the winners, no need to get any kind of selection process. They can directly enter to this speech competition, and they could contact President of Uganda Global Unitalks to express their interest, and we will give them a direct entry for this particular event. And also, we are having a second award ceremony on this day as well, where the mentors of Global Unitalks who will be getting the awards for their excellent mentorship from the international bodies like China Daily, United Nations, and so on. And also, it is a pride moment for the Global Unitalk speakers that United Nations Speech Competition, COP15, the honorable mention, 2 awards, and second and third prize goes to Global Unitalk speakers globally, and also 10 other awards on different categories will be given by the United Nations. So this award ceremony will also happen on the same day. And maybe Mr. Hilary Turanwe, you could also recommend if you want some award to be given to today's winners, we can include them on the award ceremony as well. So we will look forward to facilitate them and give them an honor and also recognition for the hard work they are doing for Global Unitalks Uganda and for themselves. As you mentioned, Global Unitalk is for the students, by the students, and of the students. So this platform belongs to them. And whatever they do, they are developing themselves and helping themselves to be a future leaders and a global citizen. I think with this, I would like to thank again all of you for being here. And We had a wonderful time, and we look forward to see you on 26th of December, 5 p.m. Hong Kong time. And until then, Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Professor. Before we leave, I just request us to all turn on our cameras and take a pic, probably. Yes, much as it is live, we could still take pics. If you could all please turn our cameras on and take a pic.
Yeah, the photo moment online, that is the only thing we can do during this period. And it's also a live telecast on the YouTube channel. You can click the button which you can see on the screen and you can get the link. And I'm sure this will be archived forever and ever. And this is one of the achievements which you have done. And you should celebrate it with your family and friends. And it is wonderful to see all of you here. Okay. Oscar.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, everyone. All right. I've just pasted the link there and to this event in case you missed it. It is in the chat space, so make sure you check and make sure you subscribe first and then like this video and this. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, and good luck. Thank you.
Wonderful. I think I really enjoyed. You guys are awesome. Keep it up. And I look forward to see you guys soon in December, at least some of them who are having time and interest. And Professor Diana is here. Before you come for this, as you said, as I told the Uganda Global Unitalks president, that the entry is direct for all the winners and participants today who are in the debate and award winners. So they can contact Professor Diana for any kind of help on the script or in any kind of other assistance. It's all free and it will all be provided to you, not only to you, or also your friends and others who would like to join the Global Unitalks family. The new team, which has been formed by the president of Uganda, I welcome you all. You see, this is the age of social media, Generation Z. So the social media is very important to reach out to as many aspirant speakers who have passion to speak, who have passion to learn, who have passion to grow, come forward in life. We will be more than happy to mentor them, guide them, help them, and give this platform to shine. So we are always here. Anytime you can contact us, you can go through our website, www.unitalks.org. You can register yourself. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, so you can get all the events whenever they're coming, the promos and everything you will get on time. And we are very delighted. And now we look forward, the new team, to outperform the last year's team so that we are growing forward. And we are going to reach our milestones, have a more presence of not only Uganda, but the entire region. Global Unitalks has no boundaries. So if you have friends or you have people whom you believe they're willing to learn, they want to come forward in life, whichever part of the world they are, you can always recommend them and we'll be more than happy to guide them. As you see that Global Unitalks, the world champion speakers come from this platform. The top speakers of United Nations come from this platform. We are the world's largest online platform today. This only because of the students and their passion and their hard work. We as academic people, we only guide them, help them, donate our time. International juries, mentors, they donate their time. But actually all the things what happens on Global Unitalk is the students' own initiative. So actually not even one penny is spent on this by anyone. This all free. All the students combine together efforts and put things together. When you see the video or you can see any advertisement, whatever promotions, all prepared, even the website designed by the students. So it's all completely controlled by the students globally. And we welcome all of you and your friends and make Unitalks Uganda to be the top performers in coming years. I think with this, I will like to say goodbye And I saw some of you are really very smart and very, very good in delivering your speeches. And I'm sure you will be on a global platform one day, and we will pave your way. We will find the way for you to reach there. I think this is what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you, everyone. Merry Christmas for now.
Merry Christmas. See you guys. Yeah. Thank you for being here. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Hillary, good job. Congratulations.
Good job, Hillary.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye-bye.